So we went in and reconfigured the whole thing, worked through the 5 steps. And by month 5 of working with us, now I didn't say month 1 or week 1, did I?
Right.
I said month 5, they had the greatest month in the history of their company.
This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business. Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute just to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're not already subscribed, while there, drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. We're going to read it here on the show. Our guest today is Philip Stutz. Philip comes from kind of an unconventional background. This is
I love it.
Cool. This is the first
When
time.
I read the bio, I was like, this is going to be a great interview.
What he refers to as the cutthroat world of political marketing. With over 2 decades of experience working on campaigns with billions of dollars in political ad spend and contributing to over 1,400 election victories, including 3 U.S. presidential victories.
Whew.
Philip has taken the secret formula that's been used to get presidents elected and applied that to helping businesses convert more customers, grow their bottom line, and dominate the competition. Philip, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
I need you guys to bring a little bit more energy to the table here.
We're not known.
Yeah,
we're not known for our energy, Philip. You know, we're laid back,
relaxing.
I'm super pumped about being here.
Nah, man, it is awesome to have you. We got introduced to Jeff, who was one of our past guests, Jeff Lerner. You guys got to go check out that episode. He's a beast.
Wild man, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, he's killing it in the entrepreneur space, in the business space. But super excited to talk to you about just, advertising and where you see the economy's at right now and how people can take what you've learned and helping people even win elections to really grow their business. Would love for you to just tell a little bit of your story, though, because it's a unique, obviously, kind of niche of an industry. I don't talk to a lot of marketers that are in the political space or have been in that space. Share with us how you got started, how you got into what you're doing, lead us up to today.
All right. Well, Luke, you just nailed what I would recommend for everybody. Go into the space that no one else is going into, right? So there aren't any, as far as I know, there aren't any political marketers out there that are crushing it in the business world, right? So I'm the only one. So you could say, hate politics. And I'm like, good. I'm good with you. You don't have to fit my niche. Like, I respect it, right? But if you're sort of intrigued by not the crazy politician, but like, what does it take to get the crazy politician elected? And then how could I think outside the box as an outlier in my industry to employ those strategies and those tactics into my business when no one else is thinking like this? What kind of exponential growth could I have? And ultimately, that's sort of the approach that we come. I mean, my background's really kind of simple. I grew up in Alabama. I was the first generation of ADD kids. This is even before they had diagnosed ADHD. So I missed ADHD. I just went straight to ADD. They threw me on Ritalin. I was a horrible student. I mean, literally, I'm not making this up, guys. I was literally put in classes that were slightly above special ed in junior high and high school, slightly above special ed. I just had severe ADD, right? Put on Ritalin, became a great student, all that kind of stuff. Got off Ritalin as soon as I got out of college, went to Alabama because I see that my ADD is a strength. I see it as one of my superpowers, and I didn't want to sort of push that power down because society told me it was bad, right? And so I really only cared about 2 things when I was in college. Like, I literally was 22 and had no idea what I was going to do. Like, these people that like start businesses at 20 or like know what they're going to do at 10 years old. Those are amazing people. I'm not that, but I literally didn't know what I was going to do. I had the chance to go work on a presidential campaign in 1996 during my senior year of college, and just basically said, "Holy, this is what I want to do." And I started working on political campaigns. I lived all over the country, and the reason I would tell you this is it goes back to the ADD thing. Like, I wanted to work for something I could believe in, something I'd be passionate about, something that would grab my attention every single moment of every day. There was a 3-year window, like from 2000 to 2002, where I had a total of 21 days off in 3 years total, including weekends. And not I just loved what I did. All I wanted to do was work. I was single. What does it matter? Right. So that's in a nutshell. I worked on that campaign in 1996 and just kind of worked my way up. By 2004, I was literally a homeless vagabond, like a mercenary running around working on political campaigns all over the country. I've lived in Louisiana and California and New Mexico and South Dakota.
Oh my gosh.
And I basically said, okay, I can't really live like this much longer. Because at the time in 2004, I was 30 years old. So moved back to Washington, D.C. and became a political consultant and did that for about 9 years. And you guys probably understand this, and maybe a lot of your audience understands. This is where it's going to resonate, I think, because I was a one-man operation. I had a ton of clients, one-man operation. And then one day I had about 8 clients. I was making high 6 figures. And I was doing some work for some nonprofits, and 2 of the nonprofits ran out of money. And another client just said, I don't want to do this anymore, like run for office anymore. It's too hard. And I went from 7, 8 clients to literally like 3 or 4 by the next week. And 60% of my income was gone. And I went, ooh, that does not feel good. And so I said I had to like change. Like I didn't know what that meant. I was kind of raised to be scared of my own shadow. And I had to, kind of overcome a lot of psychological barriers. I've done that through a lot of therapy, but also I've done the psychedelic paths. I've done all that stuff, but it's kind of broken me through that wall. And at a certain point, I was driving to see a client in New Orleans, and I was driving to Birmingham, Alabama to see another client. This is like in 2014. And I went, I can't keep going like this. I got to go big. That's the name now of one of my companies is Go Big Media. And that's where it came from. We started with, to this day, that was in 2015. So we're talking 7+ years now. And we started with no outside investors, no debt. To this day, we have no outside investors, no debt. And we've done over $1 billion in sales in our created and invested companies. And we're going to hit 100 million in revenue in the next 12 months.
That is unbelievable, man. Crushing it.
Well, my wife would tell you I'm not crushing it. Because
that's a good partner right there, pushing you. I like
that. She would tell you it's a little different because I don't give two about money, and that's part of my problem. But it's also why I'm successful, I think, because I just keep rolling my profits back into my business and doubling down. I always ask people like, what's their favorite stock or what's their most successful stock in their portfolio? And for me, it's just me, right?
Yeah, it's your business.
It's not Google. It's not some other stock, right? And so I'm like I always say, equity wise, man, I'm doing great.
Love that, man.
Cash wise, my wife's a little frustrated. Right?
It's like, how can we be $100 million company and not have any money?
That is literally a quote I've heard before.
Yes. Oh yeah. Welcome to entrepreneurship. That's what people don't realize.
On a trajectory. We want to get to about 2030, and then we want to figure out if we're ready to exit. If that's where we want to go.
Is most of your business, just so I understand and the audience understands, for your media company, is it mostly you're doing advertising type campaigns in the political and business arenas?
Yeah.
Is it social media advertising, or is it the whole gamut? Okay, social media.
It's everything.
Okay.
I was told early on I needed to be niche. I needed to be all in on a social media platform, and I went, no. I'm a strategist. And so as a strategist, I decided to bring everything in-house. We are an award-winning creative team. We have a huge media buying team.
Nice.
And we follow, which we're going to get into in a minute, but these 5 steps that I wrote about in my book. And ultimately, that's just the way we built success. We want to be the best. We want to follow data. We want to be empathetic to the customer or the voter. And then we ultimately want to produce massive results for the client.
Love that. Yeah. Well, let's get into that because your book is titled The Undefeated Marketing System. I love the subhead of your book as well. How to grow your business and build your audience using the secret formula that elects president. So that automatically kind of draws in there. Talk a little bit about the 5-step system in terms of how can a small business owner kind of apply the same thing that you've used at this massive national scale at their own local scale? What are the steps there?
Well, first of all, it's 25 years of distilled idiotic mistakes and successes down into a book so that the person that reads it doesn't have to make the same mistakes, right? I've figured out the formula through a lot of trial and error. The formula came out of it this way, and then we'll walk through the steps. But the formula had until I wrote this book had never been identified even in politics. It just was in something inherently every marketer in politics does. And so about 5 years ago, we started our corporate ad agency, which is called Win Big Media. And we landed the biggest client we'd ever landed immediately, like within the first couple months, right? And it was a 8-figure supplement company, but they were going to 9 figures. And the owner was like, I freaking love politics. I want you to do in my business what you do for presidents, right? And so I'm like, cool, let's do it. And so we started having a few successes with the guy. We were not following this formulaic approach, but we were just kind of implementing here and there the different tactics of politics. And then he said, hey, I want you guys to help me run an Instagram campaign for my largest or my best-selling supplement, like the supplement that makes him the vast majority of his business. So we said, awesome. And we had our creative team do a photo shoot and all this stuff. And we presented him what we were going to put out to the public for the ad campaign. And he looked at us in the meeting and he said, what the hell are you doing here? And we went, oh, what? And he goes, what in the hell are you doing? And we went, what? And he said, you were presenting a social or a Instagram post with the bottle of my best-selling supplement, and you don't have a human being in the ad. It's just a picture of the supplement. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I've spent 7 years working on my organic and paid algorithm at Instagram. If you don't have a human being in the ad, it'll crash the algorithm and 7 years of my work will go down the drain. How do you not understand my business?
Wow.
And I went, oh man, I am so sorry. We will get this fixed. My bad. I said, you'll have something tomorrow. That's the last time I ever talked to the guy because he ghosted me from that point forward.
Really?
Never heard from him again.
But can I ask you, just because I'm so curious, do you believe that? Is that a real thing? Like if he wouldn't have put a human in the ad, like, have you seen that to be true? Like I haven't really heard that, but I did see a speech by Ty Lopez one time where he literally went through people's Instagram pages and their websites and stuff. And he pointed out, look at the ones that get response. It's the pictures of people smiling at you, looking at the camera, not the just side 100%. Profiles and stuff.
Yeah. The guy knew his business better than I knew his business. And that was a problem because how could I serve him if I didn't understand what the customer wanted the most, which was a human in the picture. And so I locked myself, obviously we lost this massive client right out of the gate, right? We're like, damn. And so I locked myself in my office for 2 weeks. And there's this great exercise, this probably the greatest business mind in the world, in the coaching world that I've ever come across, a guy named Keith Cunningham. Not a lot of people know about him.
Yeah, I don't know him. Yeah, I'll have to write that down.
Keith, well, let me sidebar on this. Keith is great because of this. He doesn't teach you how to 10x your business.
Okay.
He teaches you how never to lose your business. It's a defensive coaching, not an offensive coaching.
Interesting.
And as business owners, we kind of need that, right? So he has this process called thinking time, where basically you're challenged by something, you write a question out and you sit in a chair without any electronics. And for 35 minutes, you just write the answer with a pen and paper. And you cannot look up, you can't look at your watch, you just have to power through. And what ultimately happens is the first 15 minutes is everything off the top of your head that you're already thinking about. The next 15 minutes, you hit a wall and you're like, there's nothing here. What the am I going to write about? I don't know what to do. I don't know. And then the last 15 minutes, you had this massive breakthrough and you just blow through ideas you never thought possible. And I'm not telling you like it happens every once in a while. It happens every time I do it. Right.
Wow.
And so I asked this question to myself, what is it? What are the steps that we take in politics to get candidates elected? And how would that apply to businesses? And I wrote down the 5 steps and I got it out of that thinking time. And I went, holy, this is what we're going to change our company to. So we went to every client we had, which was a massive risk because business owners don't like to take, as funny as it sounds, they don't like to take a lot of risks. They like to say they take risks, but they don't take a lot as much as you think. And so I said, I don't care. We're going to implement this with every client we have for it. It's just going to work or it's not. And so we had to sit down with every client and say, hey, we're going to scrap how we're doing things. We're going to follow this 5-step system. And that's what we're going to do going forward. Luckily, they all went for it. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, every one of them was having record-breaking months. And then we started bringing on new clients. And to this day, every client that we worked with that has followed the formula, some people quit because they're like, ooh, this is hard. I want the get-rich-quick pill. I just don't have it. But everybody that follows this formula has grown their bottom line, every single business. And so I went, well, I have proof now. Right. And so then I wrote the book, and the book is really about the formula, but it's all chopped through and told through stories. So political war stories, corporate campaign stories. It's a highly entertaining book if you like to read a lot of stories and learn through stories.
Love that. I want to hear the craziest political war story.
Yeah. We're going to switch to the Ben Shapiro podcast now.
Yeah, right.
No, but talk about the 5 steps, right? So let's break them down real quick. I know you can't give everything on each step, but if you could kind of go through just some of the steps here and what you think people can take away very quickly from them.
Yeah, Josh, I'm happy to give you the crazy story, but it'll take a few minutes. But if we want to come back to that, I'm all in.
All right, we'll see if we have time at the end. Yeah.
All right. It's crazy. All right. So the 5 steps work like
that's
this.
The cliffhanger. That's the clickbait. People, you got to keep listening.
I'm a media guy. I know how to tease things. So really, let me tell you how it works in politics. And I'm going to translate it over to business, right? So in politics, let's say a guy, where are you guys located again?
We're outside of Philly.
Oh my God. All right.
Don't hold it against us. It's the city of brotherly love, man.
I know. I spent 20 years in DC, so I was your neighbor, but now I'm in Florida, very different place.
Smart man.
But all right. So let's say in Pennsylvania, some guy wants to run for the U.S. Senate, right? I actually think we're doing either the Senate or the governor's race in Pennsylvania right now, one of my companies. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right. Say a guy comes and says, hey, I want to run for the U.S. Senate. First thing I do is I sit down with that candidate and I say, what do you believe in? And inevitably, that egotistical politician tells me, I believe in 27 different things. And I'm like, oh, no. Nobody wants to know your 27 things. Like, people just have room in their head for about 1 or 2 things, right? So my job is to then take those 27 different items and go test them in the field with the voters to figure out whether it's through a poll or through data and analytics. What of those 27 things rises to the top? So at such a degree that you would vote for an unknown or maybe even an unsavory candidate if you knew they believed in those 1 or 2 issues. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about anything else. And ultimately, that's what we find. 1 or 2. From that point forward, and this isn't step 1, it's doing a deep dive into the voters, into the data of the voters to understand what motivates and drives them, right? And then from that point forward, what do you think? You think we're going to talk about the 25 things they don't care about? Or are we just talking about the 2 things we care about?
And you hammer it.
Yeah. And so why that's important for business owners is to understand, I love the politician. I'm totally obsessed with the voter. And I tell you the other way around. I love the business owner, but totally obsessed with the customer or the client. B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. E-com, doesn't matter. Totally obsessed with what they believe, what they think. Because the great example I give, and we have, I tell you, the reason I'm so obsessed with this is I banked everything on my company. So I have a partnership that I pay about $1 million a year for with the largest data analytics and AI company in America. And in our database, we have 230 million American consumers, 550 million connected devices. We're tracking 10 billion online purchasing decisions every day and 1 trillion searches.
Really? Jeez.
Yes. So this is why I was on Fox Business this week, was to talk about what we're seeing in the economy through this database, because I've probably looked at more consumer data in the last 24 months since the pandemic broke out than any human on earth. Not medical data, consumer data.
Right,
and I'm obsessed with it because I want to know what moves the consumers. So my business clients know how to ship their message properly because everything's changing every 6 weeks with everything we're looking at in the economy. And if you're not on top of what's moving consumers, you're going to be left behind, right? A great example of this is a founder story. Man, Luke, Josh, you guys love your founder story. Different. I tell people my founder story. I just did it, by the way. But what if you knew that the people that buy from you only cared about 25% of your founder story?
Mm-hmm.
What if you knew? Would you continue to talk the 75% they don't care about, or would you take that 25% and optimize it for maximum
100%.
So don't spend money until you know that. That's my whole point. This system is a risk elimination system. And, Lou, you made a good point earlier. Like, okay, I'm dealing at a very high level, right? But in the book, we walk through how smaller businesses can do this without spending $1 gazillion on it, right?
Do they need the data? Like, do they need that data, or is there something you can do at the ground level? Almost like, can you poll your own clients to kind of learn, like, what is the 25% of that founder story that people actually care about?
How do you get to know the 25%?
Right.
So in my database, which we do work with small business owners to help them understand, look at their data. It's like $7,500 to do the project.
Gotcha.
So it's expensive, but it's not overly expensive. When we work with Fortune 200 companies, they're going to look at a $250,000 budget because they want to know what 18 to 20-year-old males that aren't in college thinking of this particular consumer product, right? And then they want to know 20 to 22. They want to go through 100 segments, right? Mm-hmm. But with small businesses, we can give them 3 segments and we can lower the price. That's why that's why I have this license agreement, so I can offer it at a lower cost. But let's say you don't have that money, right? Then there are a million different ways you can gather data and get better feedback on what you're doing. It may not be as sophisticated as what I have, granted, but Google Analytics, Facebook, Twitter, they all give you data and feedback. Doing the MailChimp surveys gives you feedback and data. Noticing during certain times of year when things spike and when they don't spike. Noticing downtimes, good times. Aggregating all the data you possibly can and optimizing to that. That is step 1 for me, right? You can do it in whatever way that you see fit, but that's basically the bottom line for it. So then in the political campaign, step 2 is this. Now that we know what the candidate thinks and now we know what the voter thinks, we got to put a plan together, a strategic plan, a strategy. I can't tell you in the business world how many times when we talk to a client, they have no strategy. It's all tactics. They're running Facebook ads. They're running Instagram ads. I'm like, why? And they go, Instagram. And I go, no, I know why. And they go, Instagram. Like they don't have an answer for it, right? We work with a Shark Tank company.
Okay.
They sell office chairs. So they came to us and said, we want to double the company. We said, awesome. We overlaid. So what we do in our data is it's not survey. It's not just survey data. It's actually IP targeted data. So we grab their IP address. We track their movements online. We track what they search for. We track what they're buying. We track, and then we can model it and put it all together, right?
Okay.
So we looked at their customer list. We also built out sort of a lookalike modeled audience. And we also put a pix on their website so we could track website visitors and find out why their website visitors weren't buying. And we actually found something insanely crazy. We found out, because in my database, I can tell you the social media platforms your customers are on in a chronological order. I can tell you their top 3 values in life. I can tell you what they specifically read and what they specifically watch on streaming services. And wouldn't that be nice to know?
That would be great to know.
Super nice, right? So this company came to us and they were spending 85% of their marketing budget on Facebook. And I said, why? And they said, I don't know, because we heard Facebook. We found out Facebook was the number 4 performing social media platform for their customers, their website visitors, and their modeled audience.
Oof.
Number 1, take a guess and see what it was. Let's say it. See if you can guess.
YouTube.
No.
Instagram.
No.
TikTok.
No, you only get one guess, Luke.
No, you can guess till the cows come home, baby. Twitter.
It was Pinterest.
Pinterest.
Here's why. Women had gone back into the workforce during the pandemic, but they were working from home and they wanted a comfortable office chair. And the company didn't even know it. And they were not spending a single dollar on Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest ads are effective too. Yeah. That's crazy.
And the Pinterest,
but did you figure out Pinterest because it was like a process of elimination of you saw that the people buying their chairs were women in this certain age group. Where do women in this certain age group
and they were
spend
going
their time?
to Pinterest and they were buying things on Pinterest as well.
Oh, you were watching that data. Okay. Yep. Okay. So you saw the data all the way through that you saw these people are buying stuff on Pinterest. Super interesting.
Yep. Of course. And so what I'm telling, whether it's the politician or the business owner, is stop spending money on what you don't know. Like find out the platforms they're on, the message that's going to work before you go spend a ton of money on your ad campaign, right? So for us, in order to do that, you got to put a strategy together, a plan, like a business plan. You got to think about what's my budget? Who am I going to target? What's the timeline? I'm going to play money ball with that budget. You're going to have certain platforms that are going to get certain dollars because the data says that's where the percentage should go. I'm not sitting around the table going, well, Luke and Josh have a great company. We should do some work for them. Why don't we? You know what would be a cool message? They're great guys. Like, it's just a freaking guess. Like, I'm not going to do that, right? So for me, I'm not a genius. I'm just following what the data tells me, and then I'm optimizing performance from that. So go ahead.
I could almost spend all day on this. It's crazy. So when you are honing in to find out the message that resonates, is the way you're doing that and using us as an example, right? Mm-hmm. So, the result we're generating for our clients is more referrals in their book of business, is more repeat transaction, which is ultimately more commission checks, right? For us to go out to our audience and our client base and test messages, is it literally posting some Facebook ads and seeing which ads the message resonated with more, like do a more like living a life of freedom type message, doing a message that's more, generate $1 million in sales type message, and just seeing which one respond? Is it literally that in practicality, sending out emails?
That is
subject lines to see which
step. We're going to get to that in step 4.
Okay, I'm skipping ahead. Sorry.
You're spot on. No, it's okay.
You're ahead of the class.
And the reason I tell you this is because we've now done these data reports for Tony Robbins, Roland Fraser, Jay Abraham, James Altucher, Marisa Murgatroyd, John Assaraf. I mean, in a way,
these are the biggest names. Yeah.
My brand is sort of the influencer to the influencers. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're doing one now for Amy Porterfield. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's like one of the biggest female entrepreneur influencers out there right now. And we're able to tell her everything she's ever wanted to know about the people that are in her funnel. So, but step 2 is the strategy plan, right? Step 3 is now you build the brand. So again, the mistake a lot of politicians, but business owners make is they build the brand first before they know what their customer, client, or in the politics, the voter wants, right? Why would I spend money, send people to my brand website if when they get to the website, they go, not really for me. Like, why would you do that? So we need to know what the data says. We need to have a plan in place, and we need to build the brand properly. What is the messages? What are the key points? What are the things you're going to sell? How do you prioritize the things you're going to sell on your website? What does the video look like? What does the message in the video look like? All of these things have to come together in a way that connects with the voter, or in this case, the consumer, the customer, client, right? That's why we look at step 3. Now, to get to your point, Luke, to get to your point on on sort of the testing phase, that's for me is step 4.
Okay.
Now that we know what the customer wants, it's in alignment with the business owner. So this is where people screw up. They look at the testing phase, and a lot of marketing agencies are out there going, "Hey, we had a brainstorm session. Let's test. Let's test Luke and Josh are great guys versus Luke and Josh sell lots of stuff. I don't know, And like, again, what if both are wrong and you don't know it? And then you just get feedback, one performed better than the other. So that's great. Right. In our world, we take the top 10 messages we find in the data, and we say, let's test the top 10 to see. We already know all 10 are going to work. Which one's going to rise to the top in our testing phase? We just don't know. Mm-hmm. And so, and same thing in politics. So let me give you an example. Hate him or love him. In 2016, Donald Trump, his marketers, their marketing campaign, they would take one message they knew would work in the data, and they would test it. Let's say let's just take it on Facebook. They would test it on Facebook, 162 different versions of one ad.
Really? Jeez.
They would have a red background, a blue background, a man in the ad, a woman in the ad, a black person in the ad, a white person in the ad, a white woman, a black woman, a Hispanic woman. They would have different font sizes. The font would be in the right corner, the left corner, literally 162 versions. And what happened was inevitably there would be 8 or 9 of those test ads that blew through the roof to such a degree that they were like, well, this is where we're going to spend money. But they didn't know exactly why. They just knew it worked. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you go to step 5, which is now you're ready to launch your full force marketing campaign because you've eliminated your risk every single step of the way. And you know exactly the messages that are going to work. You know exactly the platforms they're going to be on, and you know exactly how to reach those people. And then you're going to start running your marketing campaign from that point forward. And really, step 5 is just, I call it step 5 and beyond. And I talk about that in the book, really is about like, step 5 is just start the place where you start optimizing even more for performance. So we've got a 105-year-old furniture chain, regional furniture chain that we work with. And, you know, they've had the greatest year in the history of their company in 2021 and into 22. We work with a New York City law firm, 27-year-old law firm, greatest months in the history of their law firm. We work with a national pest control company. They've been in business 35 years. When they came to us, they had lost $2 million of the market share in the southeastern United States. They couldn't figure out why. We went through the process. The southeastern United States is their best region now, and they've had record month over month. This is not a pandemic thing. People aren't going around going, well, the pandemic's here. Let's get some pest control people.
Was it when you looked at the pest control one, was it because they were targeting, like, is the common factor that they are targeting the wrong people with the wrong message?
They didn't. So this is a really good question. So they built a massive, they like 4X their company from basically 2008 to 2018 on the backs of the Great Recession. So all their marketing was based on discounts. The problem was discounts. People had a lot of money. They didn't know that their main target market was actually people 55 and older. When we looked at the data, we told them that they were targeting to much younger universe. So they were targeting the wrong people with the wrong message. And when people are 55 and older, they typically have kids out of the household. They have discretionary income. They see discounts as cheap. That's what we found in the data.
Yeah,
so they were marketing, literally, they were marketing themselves to death.
Yeah.
Literally, they had spent $1.8 million in marketing in this region over a 12-month period. They lost $2 million in market share.
Jeez.
Because they didn't know what their customers wanted or who their customers were.
And you found out who their customers were, because I want to make sure I'm breaking this down for the audience. Yeah. You found out because you went and looked and saw who was buying from them. And you looked at the demographic information, the profiles basically of those people. You start there. Then from there, are you looking at the leads that came in? Where are you going to next after that?
Nope, they gave us their customer list. We overlaid it online. We tracked their movements.
Okay.
We came back to them and said, you know, over 50% of your market's 55 and older. They have discretionary income. Kids are out of the house. They're giving money to charity now because they don't have to pay for their kids anymore. You guys contributed to charity. You've never talked about charity. They wanted safe green products because their kids now are their dogs and cats, and they didn't want people spraying bug spray all over their house and injuring their animals. And they had never marketed their green products before.
Wow. Dude,
so that's so smart.
Yeah, crazy.
So we went in and reconfigured the whole thing, worked through the 5 steps. And by month 5 of working with us, now I didn't say month 1 or week 1, did I?
Right.
I said month 5, they had the greatest month in the history of their company.
Yeah. Well, break down the law firm, because the law firm's closer to like the listeners. You know, we have a lot of real estate, insurance, you know, small business owners. So the law firm, what did you find there? Was it similar, same process, obviously, but what did you see?
It was able to identify who are the types of clients that they were bringing in.
Okay.
Where were they located? What were they consuming on media? So we could target them into those platforms. So they were actually, their target market was low income.
Okay.
Think of it as a slip and fall.
Yep.
And we went in and we also saw that they were streaming at like a rate that was like 90% above the average American.
Like streaming like Netflix or streaming
Hulu, Netflix, all, YouTube TV. They were gaming, all that kind of stuff. Right. Huh. So we were able to first geofence a lot of the areas that we knew that they lived. Do y'all know geofencing? Sorry if I don't mean to be too technical. Yep. And then we were able to drop messages on those physical locations, but we also started hitting streaming. He had never, the head of law firm had never advertised on streaming services. We told him the specific streaming services to take. And then we, messaged the thing. Look, if you can have all the best data in the world, if your message sucks, it ain't going to convert anybody.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of understanding the data of the consumer and then having a great message. And this is why, guys, this is the most important thing. I mean, if you're listening there, mental note or write this down or pop it in your phone. According to Forbes, we are seeing up to 10,000 ads a day online and offline.
A person is seeing 10 or
on average, up to 10,000 ads a day. Why that's important? Because if you don't understand that there is a war going on for attention, and if you're a law firm or you're a real estate agent and you think your competition is the other real estate agent, no, it's the t-shirt company, the shoe company, it's the desk company.
Anything that's taking mind share.
It's 10,000 businesses a day. So if you're not playing a different game of thinking, one, where is my customer and what do they like and what do they want? Right. And how does that align with what I'm building? And then two, how does my message, now that I know what they want and think and all that stuff, how does it break through that clutter?
How challenging has it been for your business being so data heavy with all this privacy stuff that's going on right now? Obviously, Apple pulled, some privacy policies. You've got even in Apple Mail now it's extended to in terms of being able to track and see what people are doing. How has that sort of impacted you, or have you guys had to do anything to pivot around that?
There's always pivoting around it. The rules are going to change every 5 minutes. The good thing is for the last 10 years, we had all the access to Facebook and Apple and all iOS and all that. Yeah. So the 230 million Americans we have in our database, we already have 10,000 data points on them. Yeah. Now the streaming services, right? So Hulu, but also Vizio and the TV makers, because they're in the business. They sell the data. So we're grabbing all of their stuff there. Google is going to close the ranks probably in the next 2 years, but we still have all the access there as well. And so has it affected us? Yeah, a little bit, but we already have all the data.
Yeah. Streaming is so
now we're just adding on top of it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Probably the most insight into someone's mind, what they're watching on Netflix than anything.
Well, not only that, but let's just take Hulu or YouTube TV, right? Advertising-based services.
Sure, yeah.
Let's say I've got, 10 people on a block. I can drop an ad on a big screen TV, which is important, to just one family that meets all of my targeting capabilities. And no one else on that block gets that ad. And, that's why how inefficient cable TV is, right? Yep. Here's what we're finding in the data right now that we're seeing that it's blowing through the roof. For the first, it's been like, we've seen Facebook drastically drop, massive, like people, they're all on Facebook. I'm not saying that. They're on Facebook, but they're scrolling Facebook. They're not buying Facebook. Mm. And where we're seeing the attention go is TikTok.
Yep.
A little bit of Snap, but audio platforms.
Okay.
Massive.
So Spotify, Amazon
The
Music.
most underutilized advertising market out there right now is podcasts. I mean, or even Spotify, the advertising streaming services, or, these are the things that everybody, especially during the pandemic, that's where the attention went. People are at home, they're walking their dogs, they're working out. Everybody is now on podcasts. And that's good for you guys.
Yep.
Trying to get ad dollars. But like we're now more and more entering into the podcast market for a very niche client that has a niche service to sell. And even if that podcast gets 500 listeners, if it's 500 listeners in the exact demo that person's selling, that's where we're going to go in and start doing ads to. And it's a lot more work because everything's sort of, spread out, but you've got to do it to break through the clutter. Like you have to.
It makes so much sense because it's all about the targeting. All right. Tell us your craziest political story.
Let's end on the craziest.
Yeah, we got to hear this.
So 2001, I'm appointed by George W. Bush to work at the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education. It's like the first 2 weeks of his administration. The Secretary of Education, a guy named Rod Page, comes to me and he says, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to go to a meeting at the White House. What?
It's already the craziest we know.
I don't know what I'm doing. What are you talking about?
I mean, he didn't know like the ways of Washington.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Like he's like this school superintendent from Houston, Texas. So he's like,
wow. But let's all be honest that we all know that they don't know what they're doing. No,
they absolutely don't know what they're doing. Right. So he says, will you come with me? And he goes, we got to meet with some CEOs. I'm like, sure. So we go. I'm 26 years old. I walk into the West Wing, the Roosevelt Room of the White House. I'm in this meeting with the CEO of Hewlett Packard, AT&T, bunch of CEOs.
Jeez.
And the President of the United States walks in, and that's the meeting right there.
Oh, if you the picture. Okay.
Sick.
Yeah. And I'm in this meeting. And I have it signed. The picture that I'm pointing to is signed by the President and the Secretary of Education.
Wow, that's cool.
Because it was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
That's not the story. The story is that he comes in and he says, I want to roll out this education plan called No Child Left Behind. Yeah. And it's going to be my number one domestic policy position. And I really want to get an understanding of how you guys as CEOs would market this plan. And this is the first time I'd ever been exposed to hearing business owners or CEOs talking about marketing. It was the most fascinating talk ever. So the meeting ends and the president looks at Secretary Page and he says, they're old friends. He says, hey, Rod, I got to go do a press conference at a school. I'm going to read to these kids and then I'm going to do a press conference about this No Child Left Behind Act. So do you want to come with me and ride in the motorcade? And Secretary Page is like, yeah. And then that meant that his little stooge, me, also got to go ride in the presidential motorcade as we went to this school. It's Knoll Elementary School in DC. And so we get, if you've, bucket list item, riding in a presidential motorcade, like people waving to me on the streets, right? I hadn't done anything. Right? I'm like in a parade, right? And we go to Knoll Elementary School and C-SPAN's there. And I actually, when I give a speech on stage, I tell this story, but like, I took a flash shot of C-SPAN. I literally went back in their archives and found the school visit and me in the video of the school visit. But the president's reading to kids. I'm like standing over to his right. And after it's over, the president does this press conference, talks about No Child Left Behind. He's kind of repeating the talking points from the CEOs. And I'm seeing that whole process play out. And it's so cool. And then the president says to Secretary Page, hey, do you want to, let's just walk down the hallway of the school and pop into other classrooms and surprise the kids. And guess who got to walk in the hallway with Secretary Page and President? Me. So it's the three of us. I'm not making this up. It's the President of the United States, the Secretary of Education, and I'm like 2 feet behind. Let's be honest. I'm not equal, right? I'm like 2 feet behind. And the president looks over at Secretary Page as they're walking down the hallway. And he says, hey, Rod, it's been 2 weeks since I've been sworn in. How are you doing? How are you holding up? And he says, everything's going pretty good so far. He goes, the strangest thing, though, that I've learned since I've been in DC. And the president says, well, what is it? And he said, apparently, when you become Secretary of Education, they give you one of these guys. And he points behind himself right at me.
What are these guys?
What are these guys?
That's so great.
And the president, Bush, like literally turns around, looks at me, and if you know his mannerisms, he gives this kind of eyebrow raise, like he eyebrow raising, and I'm like frozen in my tracks, like what the hell? And I remember that night going home and laying in bed and thinking about how cool it was to hear the CEOs, but how in politics, I was nothing more than an expendable pawn. And honestly, if I'm to be totally honest, that was probably the seed that planted right there that day that put me where I am right now.
That's awesome.
Because it was such an amazing experience, but also to really realize that I'm standing next to the most powerful man in the world.
Right.
But I hadn't done anything to earn that. I wasn't adding anything of value. I was just standing there, to be honest. And I wanted my life to be something different. And I was sort of fascinated by the CEOs and their marketing talk and their advertising talk. And that's what kind of led me to where I am today. But that's, I would say that's probably my craziest story.
Great story.
Yeah,
man.
it's
great
awesome.
lesson. In
Awesome.
Phillip, thanks so much for coming on. Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you, where they can pick up your book. If I know you said you had a free resource you wanted to offer to everybody. Yeah,
no, you can find me at phillipstutz.com. I'm sure you guys will have the show notes, the proper spelling of that. If you guys, are intrigued by the way we look at data and intrigued by what your customers or clients would look like in our system, my team will do a 30-minute free phone call with you guys to talk about what's going on our data, what it looks like for your customers. You can choose to either work with us or not, but you'll get some value out of it. And that's at phillipstutz.com/insight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
We might have to take advantage of that.
Seriously.
Thanks again, Phillip, for coming on. And thank you all so much for listening. You can dive deeper to this episode. Get those links that Phillip mentioned along with the video and the show notes for this episode over at staypaidpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and looking for ways to support the show, we'd love it if you share this episode with a friend, share it with a colleague. It's really the best way to support the show. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can find us on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Love this episode, man. There's so many roads we could go down. It's so awesome. Phillip, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Guys.
Trying to, kind of break this down into something really tactical for you that you can implement that I believe all of you can do. And I love that idea of like think time, like sitting there and powering out and spending some think time on a problem. But I think specifically what will be extremely valuable for each of you to do is to sit down and look at who is buying from you. Who are they? Have you ever looked at that, looked at all your past clients and go, hey, what are the profiles on these people? What's the data on these people? Even as simple as the age group. Are they first-time home buyers? Are they, this is their third home? If you're in real estate, what is it about these people that is in common? That will teach you so much about the value proposition that you're bringing to the table and the messaging that you probably need to start using. Remember, the difference between a top producer and a mediocre producer in every single business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.